You lied to me!
Damien!
Hey! You swore that I would be human!
Oh no, Damien!
This war we're deep within. I can't go through it alone, and I won't leave you on your own. I stand before you now and promise you I am not afraid. I will fight and guide the way. We will rise again to glory then, soar into the sky. If you stop and see, then you just might believe.
Sup guys, the name's Red Dragnell and welcome back to Seduce Me 2, the Demon War. So last we left off, we're trapped in the demon world because of the Demon Lord, and Damien and the rest of the guys along with their wives came to get us. But now we have to fight the Demon Lord in the war and kill him in order to bring me back alive into my world. So here we are going with Damien to our new room, so let's continue. The walk to the room was filled with awkward silence. That's not a good sign at all. What were we supposed to do here? Damien and I were both human, and while, yes, we both knew he'd have to help in the war, he wasn't a demon anymore. Ah, crap. I grimaced, feeling the nervousness of the situation take hold of me. This was going to be a rocky adventure. Who knew what would happen? What to expect? I could only guess time would tell. I gripped Damien's hand harder, letting my nerves sink in. Naturally, Damien smiled and kissed my forehead.
It's okay. Everything will be alright, I promise.
Oh, I feel warm. Thank you, Damien. I nodded, but some part of me was still fearful despite his reassurance. We were in the demon world. Humans in the demon world. I was worried what would become of Damien now that he was in his home plane as something he wasn't born as. I looked up at Damien, seeing him focused on following our guide to get us to our room. I was curious what was going through his mind. I was sure he was worried when I was taken, but now that he had me back, what was he thinking of now? For a moment, I briefly wished I had his mind-reading ability. I wanted to know what went through Damien's mind at everything we did, at every step we made, at every event that came along the road. Feeling my stare, Damien turned his head and looked down at me, furrowing his eyebrows in confusion.
What is it?
I lightly bit my lip. Did I want to tell him what was on my mind? Let's be honest with him. Even though he kind of wasn't honest with us a while back. Well, anyway, what do you think about this whole thing? I had to verbalize my curiosity. Damien took in the question before turning to the hall, once again, frowning a bit.
I think it's a really bad situation. You're trapped here, and I'm human, so I can't do much to help in the war.
As Damien squeezed my hand, however, I felt my heart flutter a bit.
Still, I want to help and bring you back. I'll do everything I can to send us back home.
Damien. I naturally hugged his arm to me, causing him to gasp a bit and look over, a faint blush running across his cheeks. He was so adorable and I absolutely loved him. Whatever drew him to me made my heart feel absolutely lucky to have him. As we reached our room, I took it in that the ambassador room I had claimed the night before was officially sanctioned for me and Damien. The others were given rooms in other part of the castle, so we had some space to ourselves. Stepping in, I took a seat on the bed, feeling mild exhaustion sweep over me. However, Damien looked around the room in slight awe. I tilted my head, wondering why. Damien stepped around the room, looking around and observing every piece of decor. As he got to the mantel, he looked almost stunned to see the design and architecture of it. It was almost like watching a little kid walk into a museum. Damien? My voice caught his attention, causing Damien to jump up and look at me in surprise. As he calmed down, he rubbed the back of his neck in nervousness.
Sorry, I've never really been in a room like this before, so this is a bit of a surprise to me.
Really? What kind of room did you have? I stared at Damien in shock. He never really saw a room like this. We were in the demon world, though. How could have this been not familiar to him? I was positive that he would have at least seen a room like this in his time here. Damien shook his head in reply.
I never had a room growing up.
What? Did you just sleep on the floor? No, you don't deserve this treatment. You're gonna sleep on this comfy bed with me tonight, okay? I feel sad now. And my heart suddenly crumbled in my chest. I knew that Damien was the mistreated bastard son of the demon lord, but to not have a room? That was almost cruel. See? Exactly. Where you go to sleep? I couldn't help imagining Damien sleeping on the cold marble floor of the grand hall, or even in a cell. No! Don't tell me you slept on the floor or in a cell. That's worse. My soul began to weep for him, but I knew that it was just better to ask him about his experiences than assume the absolute worst cases. How did you sleep then?
Well, demons don't sleep at all, actually.
Huh? Oh yeah, I forgot to mention when Matthew was in the first game, when Matthew was like, oh yeah, sleep is actually a thing. Man, my cousin's not here, so I can't explain it to her. Actually, no, Damien's gonna be the one explaining, not me. That made absolutely no sense. Wait, what? They don't? Why do they have beds and stuff then? Damien blushed a bit with a grimace across his lips.
Well, other than having, sex, demons rest. Like lying down and reading or something like that, but demons never close their eyes for long. It opens them up to being taken advantage of.
So in other words, they're paranoid that someone's going to attack them in their sleep, or have sex with them in their sleep. Then how the heck do demons function?
With energy and food. As long as a demon has both, or at least one or the other, they can keep functioning without needing to sleep. Lying down simply lets them stop using their energy.
Then what about in the human world? Were you and the others pretending to sleep? I want to not pretend to sleep. I want them to sleep. Damien shook his head, driving another confused question in my brain. What? Demons could sleep then, but only if they wanted to? But they absolutely didn't need to, so they didn't have to? Damien laughed a bit at my confusion.
When we went to the human world, we got to experience sleep for the first time. It was so good for us, and we felt relaxed, so we kept at it, like regular humans. Besides, the risks we had here are not the same as the risks in the human world.
That's true. There was still a lot I had to learn about demons, apparently. Not that I needed to know, but my curiosity about them grew the more I learned about them. Damien smiled and walked over to sit beside me and kiss my cheek.
I think we'll be safe to sleep, though. This is Lilith Castle, after all.
Lilith Castle? This place has a name? With a nod, Damien pointed over at the mantel, tracing through the air at the markings in the stonework.
If I remember right, James told me about the first succubus, Lilith, and how she gave birth to incubi and succubi from this very castle. Diana is her descendant, so she now owns this place.
So that's why Diana's a queen. Well, not yet, but she will be queen once the demon lord is dead. Hopefully, if the demon lord is dead. Wow. So Diana really was a princess. I was a bit surprised to confirm that fact, but in the end, it made sense. She had the attitude of one, that was for sure. Damien wrapped an arm around my shoulders and smiled.
At least we'll get some good sleep tonight.
Yes. Yeah. I could feel that we would be okay in our room. The castle was well fortified from what I knew, and Diana seemed to be on top of making sure everything ran smoothly, as did the other rebel leaders. Everything was like a well-oiled machine. I leaned my head on Damien's shoulder, letting out a small sigh. I'm sorry.
Huh? For what?
I looked up at Damien, remembering that I had been gone an entire day. I must have worried him sick and made everyone else go crazy at my absence, not only from the wedding, but from the entire human world. For going missing, I was gone for a whole day. Damien stared at me for a moment before smiling and kissing my forehead.
Were you really here a whole day?
I furrowed my eyebrows, staring at him and trying to figure out if he was joking or being serious. Seeing my expression, Damien let out a small laugh and hugged me to his side.
To me, you were only gone for about 4 or 5 hours.
Huh? Wait, what? That could not be. There was no way I was gone for that short period of time. I remember sleeping in this room, going through an entire day of being in this world and trying to get home to him twice. That definitely did not add up. With a small smirk, Damien released me and placed his hand on my head.
Time runs differently between the human and demon world. A whole day here is about 5 hours in the human world. You weren't gone very long.
What? Now you're telling me there's time differences? Why could nobody tell me about this sooner? What in the world? My jaw dropped. Every time was different here? Wow, read that wrong. Even time was different here? This world was full of surprises. I felt myself hold my cheeks and tried to take it in. How did everyone react? Damien frowned a bit and gently wrapped his arm around me, hugging me fully to him and resting his head on mine.
We were all worried sick about you.
Oh no, don't. You don't need to worry, I'm right here. Damien. I could only imagine what Damien went through in those 5 hours when I didn't arrive. What was the first thing he did? What was the first thing anyone did? I felt guilty, but I also knew what had happened was out of my hands. Damien let out a small sigh and kissed my head.
When you didn't show up, we sent the girls to find you while my brothers managed to wipe everyone's memories and delay the wedding for a couple of days. We didn't know how fast it would take us to find you.
Damien's grip tightened around me as he pulled me even closer to him.
I had to rely on my brothers to find you. There was no clue to where you were taken, so I had to sit and wait until they managed to locate you, here. Then we came.
Then you came. Let's embrace Damien. I was stunned by the love I was given by Damien. Despite being human, he traveled through the gates of worlds to try and find me. I was lucky to have a loving man like him. My only regret was being in this world instead of at the altar with him. I wrapped my arms around Damien and pressed my forehead to his shoulder, closing my eyes and taking in his scent and love. Eventually, Damien pulled away and stared down at me with a tired smile.
We should get some rest. There's a long week ahead of us.
Long week of training and whatnot. Yeah, I don't want to stay up anymore. Let's sleep. I nodded in agreement, knowing exactly what he meant. We slowly crawled into bed and snuggled into each other's arms, embracing the darkness of slumber once more. As sleep welcomed me, a thought ran through my mind. What would happen? Obviously, the boys would help fight in the war. But what about Damien? He was indeed human and had no abilities to use as such. Then again, maybe he could still use magic as a human? Carrie was able to do so, and she was human, but she was a witch, trained in magic. Damien's abilities came with his demon side, which he no longer had. Friendly reminder, Carrie is Sam's wife in this game. Okay. How would he fight then? The question floated around in my mind and my dreams as I drifted into a calm and peaceful sleep.
Why can't I sleep?
No, you need to go to sleep and stop showing your shirtless self. Okay, let's get a small view for whoever's watching. Yeah, okay. Just a little small view, okay. But go to sleep!
Something's wrong.
Oh dear.
Something is indeed wrong, boy. You're in the demon world, and you won't even acknowledge your demon side.
Oh dear Lord. That's like Diana.
Huh? What are you doing here?
Observing a disappointment for amusement. You keep continuing to fail at living so much that it's become a wonderful form of entertainment.
Oh dear.
The demon who lost his powers. Doesn't that sound absolutely ridiculous? Let's replace it with the demon whose wife almost became the demon lord's next bed bitch.
Can you shut up, whoever you are? It sounds like Diana, but I know it's not Diana. It's just some voice. Just go away.
What do you want?
Oh, come now, don't be so hostile. You'll wake the human up.
She and I are both human.
I cannot believe it. Is that what you still think, boy? Do you truly believe yourself to be human?
He's human. Now leave him alone.
Yes, no matter how many times you taught me, I know the truth. I am human.
Well, I hate to break the delusion you may be under, but you should know that becoming a human is impossible for a demon.
That's not true. I've been a human for over 2 years now. I don't believe you.
Then you are more of a disappointment than I imagined. God, why don't you just give up? Then again, if you gave up, then I would lose my entertainment.
Leave.
Fine, I shall. But heed my words, boy. Tomorrow will be a very rough awakening for you. I can feel it.
No. The morning rose with me stretching and yawning the sleep out of my body. I surprisingly had a peaceful night, but apparently Damien didn't, as he wasn't in bed with me. Because he was up all night. He should have been sleeping, but that stupid voice, whoever it was, just... Poor Damien. I looked to the side to see him not under the sheets with me, but standing by the fireplace, standing into the flames with bags under his eyes. I slowly rose from the bed and covered my mouth as another yawn escaped me. Damien? At the sound of my voice, Damien looked over, eyes glazed over in exhaustion. I could tell that something had kept him up, so I slid my legs off of the bed and walked over to him, wrapping my arms around him. What's wrong? Speak to me! I looked up in his violet and blue eyes, trying to find an answer within them, despite it being impossible. Whatever it was that kept him up, I wanted to know and try to help. Still, Damien remained silent. His arms, however, wrapped themselves around my form and gently pulled me against his body, leaning his forehead against mine. With a soft, tired sigh, Damien closed his eyes and gave me a small squeeze.
Did you sleep well?
I nodded, but remained concerned. If something was wrong, I wanted to know and try to help him get over it. Still, Damien said nothing and just smiled at me.
Good. That's good.
What about you? I needed to know what was wrong. Something about Damien didn't seem to be okay, and I wanted to see what I could do. Apparently, I was sleeping and didn't know what was wrong, so you gotta tell me what's wrong, even though I know what's wrong because I saw everything that happened, but my character didn't. Damien simply stared down at me, exhaustion plaguing his eyes, before shaking his head.
Nothing's wrong. At least, I don't think so.
Oh, then why do you look so tired? Damien pressed his lips together and looked down at the space between us almost in shame. What was he hiding?
I didn't sleep much last night. Sorry.
I furrowed my eyebrows and cupped his cheek. He was warm, probably from sitting in front of the fire for a long while. Still, I was now worried for Damien. Maybe you should head back to bed and try to catch some sleep. Damien opened his mouth to speak, but was interrupted by the sound of a pounding fist at our door. Who the fuck is pounding at our door?
Oi! Got some food. Let us in.
Sam, come on, you knucklehead.
Rise and shine.
Okay, I'm sorry. I can't say no to Carrie. Sorry. Damien and I stared at the door before holding hands and circling around the bed to sit on the edges of it. As we settled onto the mattress, Damien called out, masking his exhaustion.
Come in.
Look at them. They're so cute together. Okay. The door opened to reveal the other incubi and their wives, who began to slowly file in each with a plate of food in their our hands. Carrie and Sam, however, had 2 each and passed us their extra plates.
There you go.
Thanks, Carrie.
There you go, bro.
Thank you, Sam.
They look cute together, though. I gotta admit, Sam and Carrie look cute together. The group settled into the room, making themselves comfy whether they were standing or sitting on the bench. As I looked down at the plate in my hands, I took note of the food on it. Jerky, cheese, fruit, and bread. Simple. I began to chow down on the fruit as James cleared his throat.
So, we need to discuss training.
Sam and Matthew let out a simultaneous groan, obviously not in the mood to get into the conversation James wanted to start up. I feel that right now, like, I don't want to train, let me just eat my food first before you start anything, James.
Do we have to? Can't we wait until after breakfast?
Exactly, Matthew has a point. Let's eat first, and then we can discuss training. I'm sorry, but food comes first for everything.
As much as I would agree, we are strapped for time. We need to settle a plan, and soon.
Dang it, Eric, I hate when you have a point. I hate when you have that point.
We train like we used to do. Go and kick the bastard's ass, and we go home. Done.
He just wants to get this over with. As expected of Sam. Sam began to stuff his face, finished saying his piece, as James pinched the bridge of his nose and let out a sigh of irritation. Carrie grabbed Sam's shoulder and shook it slightly, making him look up at her.
As awesome as you are, I don't think that'll be enough.
Carrie does have a point, though. But at least she complimented you.
Indeed. We may be 5 strong, but we'd still be going up against the man who has always been stronger than all of us combined. We need to think logically about this.
Well, not to bring up the elephant in the room, but aren't you guys kind of Downey brother? At least demon-wise?
You had to bring that up, Noreen. Also, are you wearing the kitty stockings? Look, she's wearing the kitty stockings. I want it now. You have officially become my favorite. Okay, moving on. Everyone looked at Noreen, taking in what she had said. She was right. Damien was human now and couldn't train like a demon. Right? Oh, Damien. Damien looked down at his plate again and began to eat in silence. What was wrong? The others continued to chat, and ignoring me and Damien.
While Damien may be human now, he can still fight.
Yeah! Damien can still kick ass.
Any human can fight, really, if you piss them off enough. I think Damien's got more of a reason to be pissed off than anyone else.
Hey, Sam has a really awesome point there.
Yeah, all 5 of us can kick his ass. 4 demons in a human style.
I love the way Matthew thinks.
Well, not exactly.
What? At that moment, everyone turned their heads to see Diana at the door. To my surprise, her expression was a very guilt-driven and regretful demeanor. Something in my gut began to churn. What did Diana mean? What did she have in mind?
Not exactly?
You're not exactly down a brother. At least not in the sense you are insinuating.
Uh-oh. Diana stepped further into the room, placing her hands together by her stomach and looking to Damien, who simply looked back at her with tired but stern eyes.
What do you mean?
Say something, Diana. I'm getting nervous. The room began to fill with a tense aura, making it clear that Diana was going to drop some sort of bombshell on us. In a fit of discomfort, Sam rolled his shoulders and practically spat out at Diana.
Well, out with it.
Oh dear. With a heavy and low breath, Diana looked into Damien's piercing gaze, no longer able to hide what secret she was keeping.
Damien, can you read my mind right now?
Oh dear. Silence once again trickled into the air. I looked to Damien, now very confused and concerned. Did he still have his mind-reading abilities? I thought she turned him human. He wasn't a demon anymore, right? Oh no, I don't like the look. I don't like his look. As I stared, Damien kept his gaze locked on Diana, concentrating on her. Eerily slowly, his eyes began to widen with fearful dread. No! Was he able to read her mind after all? Oh no! The next second became blurred as Damien pounced off of the bed and charged at Diana, slamming her into the wall by her neck.
You lied to me!
Damien!
Hey!
You swore that I would be human!
Oh no, Damien! I instantly stood, lost in a state of shock from seeing Damien lock Diana in a fist choke hold, pressing her hard against the stone wall behind her. Naturally, Diana gripped Damien's wrist, trying to pry it off of her.
Why can I read your thoughts?
Oh, Damien! I want to hug him so tight right now. Desperate for air, Diana lifted her leg up and kicked Damien off of her, folding him back to slam into Sam and Carrie. Diana buckled to the ground, coughing wildly, as Sam managed to catch Damien and keep them both upright, as Carrie held onto the bench to keep from falling back. Damien! I instantly rushed over to Damien, pulling him from Sam's hold and wrapping my arms around him. He was shaking, and I caught sight of tears running down his cheeks, as if he was trying to disbelieve what was happening. No! Precious! Come here! I need to hug you!
What did you do to him?
No! I'm sad now. I need to physically hug this man. Diana lifted her head and grasped her neck. However, her expression wasn't one of rage, but still of deep regret. She knew that this would happen, and this was a deserved punishment. She expected this.
I never turned you human. I only drained you of your energy through a ritual. It was supposed to completely wipe out any need for energy, making you human. But you've never been completely transformed.
Oh dear. Oh. So that's what happened. She used a ritual to drain him of energy to the point where he didn't have his mind-reading abilities, and it made him seem like a human. But that's sad that he's getting back his powers in the demon world. Damien attempted to lunge at Diana again, causing me to instinctively grip onto him and keep him back. No more fighting! Please, don't fight her. She needs to explain more. None of this made sense. If he was still a demon, then eventually he would have needed energy. Yet there was no point where he drained it from me. But Damien never felt like a demon. We've been practically magic-free for 2 years. That doesn't make sense.
I've had no magic, no mind reading for 2 years. I never felt the need to feed or drain any energy the entire time. How is this possible?
You're in the demon world. This world is full of magic, strong enough to rekindle your abilities. The human world is too pure to give your body the power it needed to convert back to your demon state.
See, his powers are coming back because he's in the demon world. And why did I have to be dragged into this? Why did I have to be dragged into the demon world? Why? Demon Lord, why? This entire situation became a myriad of confusion. Damien never became human? Diana didn't fulfill her end of the deal? What was going on? Damien eventually slumped into my arms, his adrenaline completely drained as he took in the truth of what had become of him. At the same time, the situation hit me as well. Damien was still a demon, unconsciously so, but still unchanged. A part of me was relieved, while the other part of me felt incredibly sorry for him. I want him to be a human. As much as he's okay as a demon, I still want him to be human to make him happy.
I'm sorry.
No, you're not.
Aww. Damien looked up at Diana, eyes full of tired rage. Diana stared back, flinching at the sight. I could feel the anger revolving around Damien's body as I held him close to me, which in turn almost frightened me.
You'll never be sorry for anything. The Princess of Lilith is too prideful to give a damn about anyone but herself, and it's always been that way.
Don't say that. I feel like Diana's really sorry. I could hear the venom snaking into his words as he struck them at the succubus. However, there was also deep pain and hurt. Who wouldn't be? He had been living a lie, and the reality of the truth was crashing down around him.
Was it funny? Tricking me into believing you? Oh, it must have been. Because you fooled me for the past 2 years and managed to get away with my energy. You always get what you want, don't you?
I could feel his pain, but still. You gotta calm down a bit. Yeah, that's enough, Damien. He was right. This was unfair. But Diana did what was the closest thing to making him human. She didn't expect him to come back to the demon world and rekindle his powers, so, in a way, she did give him what he wanted. Diana slowly stood and rubbed her neck, rogue tears running down her face, but her expression contorted to one of cold hatred.
Well, the joke's on me then. I returned to see my kingdom in flames and my family gruesomely slaughtered. So I guess I didn't get what I wanted either.
No, her parents died? That's I blame I have a feeling the Demon Lord was behind this. Yeah. It's only one finger pointed. Aw, poor Diana. And Damien too. I'm sad for the both of them. That caused silence to engulf the room. That news formed a dark pit in my stomach, forcing me to imagine such a scene and shake it out of my thoughts furiously. Damien didn't speak. Instead, he moved and sat down on the bed, his head in his hands as he curled over his knees. I followed, wrapping my arms around him comfortingly. Damien's brothers, however, each took a step towards Diana.
Give Damien his energy back.
As much as she wants to, she can't. Because she already used the energy. I'm pretty sure, because if it's 10 years in the demon world and 2 years in the human world, I'm pretty sure she can't do that. She can't. She probably used up all that energy already.
Impossible.
See?
Like hell it is! If he's still a demon, he needs his energy to fight.
I've spent the last 10 years fighting the Demon Lord with both of their energies. I'm not as powerful as I was then. So I no longer have the ability to give him anything without risking my life.
See? Diana has a point.
Who said we gave a damn about you?
Oh, come on. Well, she was kind of a bitch, but still. Sam stepped up to Diana, leaning nose to nose with her. His anger flared around his body, giving an intimidating warning that didn't seem to faze her.
You fucked over our brother. We don't give a shit about what happened because of your fuck-up. You're gonna fix this, or else.
Please take that as a threat. Because if you don't, you're probably screwed.
That's enough, Sam.
Eric, seemingly the only sensible one of the group of the incubi, grabbed onto Sam's shoulder and pulled him away from Diana. Sam gave in, still glaring at the succubus before sitting down beside his wife on the bench. I, however, became torn. What was going to happen now? Damien was a demon again and was getting his powers back. Yet Damien didn't want his powers back at all, even at the risk of being the odd brother out. This entire situation became a conglomerate mess of uncertainty and confusion that I had to lower my head and close my eyes for a moment. Diana wiped her eyes, letting out a small sigh before she glanced around the room.
I will do what I can to fix this issue. For now, however, you can correctly assume that the 5 of you are all demons and can fight with your incubus abilities.
With a cold glare, Diana locked eyes with Sam. As she spoke, Seto, who had only just entered the room, stepped behind Diana to add to her intimidation. Ah, snap! Seto is looking at Sam, ready to lunge at him if he does anything to Diana.
And if any of you dare step up to me and threaten me again, you will not live to see the final battle.
Wow. Sam moved to stand, sudden anger flashing through his expression, before Carrie grabbed a hold of his arm and pulled him back down to sit beside her. Diana closed her eyes and took a breath before crossing her arms and regaining her professional composure. The air was filled with anxious irritation, but we had to let it go for now. We would hash everything out at a later time, but for now we had to focus on what was going to bring me and Damien home. Diana ran a hand through her hair and looked around the room, pressing her lips into a fine line.
So, about all of you participating in the war, you all obviously need to train.
Everyone nodded in agreement to Diana's statement. While we weren't battle ready, we still needed to at least know how to defend ourselves. Diana, however, looked to me.
You, most of all.
What? Huh? Me? I was suddenly confused. How come I was the odd one out that had to be ready the most? The last thing I remembered about me training was that Diana was against the idea altogether. Yeah, you were pretty against the idea of me fighting in the war. Diana sighed and rubbed her temple.
Apparently, there are guidelines to breaking this curse. Not only do we have to kill the Demon Lord, But you have to be nearby when it happens for the curse to even break.
Are you serious? I gotta be near that maniac demon lord? Oh, jeez. Could things get any worse at this rate? That makes no sense. Where did you learn this?
Shadow. He spent the night trying to find alternative ways to break your curse. Unfortunately, we didn't find anything of the sort, but we found the guidelines to breaking it.
Well, it still makes no sense.
Even while it doesn't, it's still better to be safe than sorry. I don't want to kill him and then still have you stuck here because of an error.
True. I could only sigh and take it in. So I had to be there when the demon lord fell. Great. Diana waved her hand dismissively through the air, breaking my potential thoughts.
Anyway, we can't have you dying on the way there, and we can't monitor you when we're in battle. You should at least know how to defend yourself. That's why we've come up with a solution.
Huh? What solution?
Simple. The other rebel leaders and Sero have agreed that if you'd like a trainer to enhance your abilities, you can train with one of them.
Woo! I stared, seeing Sero step forward with a nod.
Each of the leaders is proficient in a different area of magic and battle strategy, good enough for self-defense. I can't speak for the others, but I can assure you that with Sero's skill and training methods, you will be well prepared by the time the siege arrives.
Sero nodded and bowed to me slightly. While I was flattered at the idea, did I really need a trainer? I knew Taekwondo, and I at least knew how to defend myself, demon or not. Then again, we were in the demon world, where magic was the norm. Yeah. What would the others teach me? I'd like to train with Sero. I don't need to train. Yeah, I'm gonna cross that one out saying I don't need a trainer because we're in the demon world, for God's sake. How would Taekwondo help me? To be honest. Okay, so... I'll train with Sero. He seems like a cool guy to train with. I like to train with Sero. Sero seemed skilled enough to train me. He was Diana's right hand, after all, and he was the one who apparently stopped the Demon Lord from getting his hands on me. I, at least, had to give it a shot. Sero nodded and looked to Diana, who crossed her arms.
Very well. You've made a good choice, I assure you.
With that, Diana turned on her heel and left the room.
Finish eating. Afterwards, you should start training.
Everyone in the room nodded their affirmation as Diana and Sero left.
Well, it looks like we'll be busy for the next couple of days.
This'll be fun.
Maybe.
Man, training's gonna suck.
I have to kind of agree with Matthew, though. I don't like training.
It'll be worth it, though.
Damien's right.
After we all finished eating, everyone left to either train or do things on their own. I left to start on my own work, determined to be prepared for what was to come. The Demon Lord wasn't going to win. I wouldn't let him. I chose to train with Sero. He seemed to be very skilled, so I trusted him to train me to the best of his ability. I didn't want to be a silent observer in this war. I would pull my weight. Sero brought me to the Grand Hall, which he had apparently claimed as his personal training grounds, as Sergeant had to use the official grounds for the army. Personal training grounds?
When I train my lady, I bring her here. That way she is not seen by the army.
Why would her being seen by the army be an issue?
It's not a matter of it being an issue. We simply choose to train together alone.
I see what you're doing. I see what you're hinting, Sero. Well, good on you. You gotta keep doing you. Keep doing what you're doing. Go get Diana, and I'll be here every step of the way cheering you on. Alright then. I nodded. If Diana had her reasons, then that was enough for me. Sero nodded in return before holding his hand out to the side.
Now, do you have a preferred weapon of choice? Choose wisely. You need to focus and master one weapon if you wish to benefit from this training. I won't allow you to change your mind later.
I stared at Sero, unsure of why he would ask me that. However, I closed my eyes and thought to myself for a moment. There were a couple of weapons I could think of. I thought of a gun, but what if human guns were powerless here? After all, demons had magic on their side. If they were powerful enough, maybe even a speeding bullet could be blocked with ease. I sighed and thought of what melee weapon I could use. I already know Taekwondo. No, that's not going to help me. A spear, a sword, surprise me. Well, not fond of spears, so sword, surprise me. Let's go. Yeah, let's go with the sword. Seto closed his eyes and closed his outstretched hand into a soft fist. Black and purple mist slowly formed around his hand and wrapped around itself like a spiral in the crevice between his fingers and palm. The magic elongated and formed itself into a black handle with a white, almost lavender blade stretching upward from it. Seto walked over towards me and handed me the sword, letting me feel the light weight of it in my hand. It was almost feather-like, yet my hand knew that this was a weapon.
A very simple weapon. You should be able to learn quickly with it.
All right. Seto nodded and stepped back, gripping his gold spear and going into a stance. I followed suit.
Trust your instincts. I'll go slow so you can adjust yourself to the weapon. However, I won't remain slow for long.
Oh, no. I stared at Seto, now fully settled into what I had signed up for. I was learning how to defend myself and possibly how to kill someone else. I felt a nervous shiver run up my spine before taking a breath and trying to relax my muscles. Seto seemed to take my breath as my signal to prepare as he took a step back and readied himself with a stance.
Are you ready?
I nodded. I had asked to be trained. If I wasn't ready, then I wouldn't ever be. Seto crouched down, gripping his spear before lunging for me, ready to skewer me on its blade. Dodge! I reflexively jumped away, avoiding the tip of his blade as I stepped to the side. I stared wide-eyed at how far he had thrust his spear, jamming it all the way through the space I was previously in. Was he really trying to kill me? Parry! I jumped forward and swung my sword against his spear to push the blade away from him. With a loud clash, the spear was pushed to the side, leaving him open. I had him. I felt powerful as I ready to attack him. I lunged in and prepared to pierce him with my own attack. However, Seto moved his spear across his body, blocking my attack and pushing me back. I growled at myself at not seeing the strength of his defense. As I landed, though, I saw a small smirk on Seto's face. Was he proud of me or was he mocking me? I'm pretty sure... No, he shouldn't be mocking me. Either way, I used the momentum to lunge forward again, continuing our sparring match. We continued to train relentlessly through the day. Each break we had was small, but I understood why. I only had a week to learn how to fight after all. Time wasn't on our side when it came to me learning how to fight or at least defend myself. As we finished a sparring session and slowed to take another break, I let out a sigh. I was exhausted, but I knew I had to keep going. If the Incubi were going to keep training, then I had to keep up as well. Seto let out a small sigh and stretched, wiping some sweat from the side of his brow before looking to me.
Let's take a break for now.
Yeah, good idea. I collapsed onto the floor, on my rear, and slouched over my crossed legs, thankful to no longer be on my feet. I thought Taekwondo was hard, but fighting with a weapon was proving itself to be even harder. I felt a little envious for people who were able to master weaponry.
I have to admit, I'm impressed. For the first time holding a weapon, you did pretty well. My lady had to train for months to try and use her weapon properly.
Well, what does Diana use? I was curious about her. I knew she had magic, but did she really need a weapon? Of course, if her energy ran out, then she would need some sort of protection. Seto stared wide-eyed at me for a second before smiling softly.
She uses a saber, a curved sword. While regular straight swords are good for piercing your opponent, curved blades are made for slashing and cutting your opponent down. They're a little difficult to maneuver without in-depth training.
Saber sounds really cool. Saber... wow. Said that wrong. Said saber. Wow. Seto looked down at his hands, forming a saber with a black grip and a deep purple blade. It looked like a masterwork blade, despite it forming out of his magic. As Seto stared at it, his smile brightened a bit.
A saber is much more graceful in combat than a regular sword. Anyone can wield it, but it takes a true master of the blade to use a saber properly and make a fight look like an elegant dance.
I was in awe. I could see a soft shadow of adoration in his eyes as he spoke. Did he really adore his mistress that much? You seem to really care for Diana. Seto looked to me with a chuckle.
I don't just care for my lady.
Aww, of course he mentioned that he loves her, and I'm happy for him, and you gotta keep going for her, man. I'm rooting for you. That was obvious. The way he spoke about her spoke volumes of his affections for her. As Seto looked to me, a flash of realization washed over my eye. washed over his eyes. What?
You're human, so you would understand.
Yes. Understand what? Apparently my character doesn't get it.
Love.
There we go. I stared at him, knowing the meaning of the word but not understanding what he meant by saying it. Are you serious right now? I'm sitting here, and even I can understand it. What about love?
Well,
For a moment, Seto looked back to the saber in his hand before shaking his head.
never mind. It's nothing.
It is not nothing. You tell me about your love for Diana. I wanted to ask more, but a pair of footsteps echoed through the room from the door, causing me to turn around and see who it was. Speak of the devil, Diana! Diana, lightly glistening with a thin layer of sweat and wiping her brow, stepped into the room with a smile. I could hear Seto's breath hitch softly as Diana walked in. She did a small hair toss, most likely to get some cool air behind her neck, before looking to her guard and my trainer.
How is training going?
Going fine, my lady. How are the airs?
They're strong, but not strong enough. At least not yet. It will take more time to get them up to par with where they need to be for the war. They've been in the human world for too long, and they've lost their sense of real battle.
In haste, Diana looked to me and held up her hand towards me, as if to ask for forgiveness.
No offense to you, of course.
It's alright. I understood. The human world is vastly different from the demon world, so the boys had become humanized and softened. Hangouts. I forgot to close that. Sorry. What was it? Okay. The boys had become humanized and softened. Still, I was sure that they would train hard and become better than the demon lord.
Anyway, I was just taking a break and wanted to check in. Had to make sure you didn't kill our guest, Sarah.
Oh, jeez.
I would never!
Diana's laughter filled the room as Sarah's face brightened up to a hot pink tinge. Aw. Aw, crap. I pressed it twice. Sorry! She was merely joking. That's what she meant to say. Yeah. She was merely joking with Seto, so that's what she was saying. Diana looked at me with a nod and a smile that she knew that I would be okay, at least in Seto's hands.
I'll leave you both be then. I'm sure that after we're finished training, your husband will want to replenish his energy, and it wouldn't do if you were still training here when he finishes.
Yeah. With that, Diana turned and walked out of the room. Seto and I kept our eyes on her before I looked over to the suddenly love-struck guard. Aww. His eyes were glued to the door that Diana left from, almost unblinking. Seto, let him stare for a little longer. Let him admire his love, man. There was no harm in letting him be weird for a little while. As he stared at the door, I stretched my neck. Finally, Seto snapped out of it and looked at me, blushing and wide-eyed.
Sorry. Where were we?
Training.
Training! Right. Let's go again.
That was fast. In a complete reversal, Sarah's expression hardened to a serious stare at me. I nodded, knowing that the break we had was now over. Once more, we trained and continued until dinner rolled around. As the soft echo of dinner time bells reverberated through the halls of the castle, Seto and I went our separate ways, him to his lady, me to my bedroom. I channeled my energy forward through the hall, wanting so much to go back to the room, fall up onto the bed and sleep. However, something in my gut stopped me from moving as I approached my bedroom door. Huh? Something felt wrong. Whether it was something in the air or my natural instincts screaming at me, something was throwing me off and I couldn't pin down why. As a pained groan escaped the room, my suspicions were confirmed. I peeked into the bedroom to see Damien curled up in bed, gripping his head and pressing his knees into his chest. Damien! I rushed over and knelt by the bed, now insanely worried. What was happening with him? As I got close, however, Damien jutted his hand out, facing his palm to me in a tense position.
Stop! Don't!
I froze in place. His face was contorted to one of extreme pain, gritting his teeth and crushing his eyebrows together in a tight expression of agony. I couldn't tell what was going on, but whatever it was torturing him. Damien violently shook his head, digging his fingers further into his head.
Please, just stop!
Stop doing anything. I want to help him, but No, my instinct being wrong. Let's see. If Damien got back his powers, that means he could read minds. Which means that he can basically read minds of everyone and he can't control it. So that means he's reading mine as well. So maybe I should make it less easy on him and not do anything? Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Stop doing anything. I let every part of my body become still. My thoughts, my limbs, everything apart from breathing and blinking. If Damien was hearing thoughts again, then he was probably getting bombarded with a castle's worth of them, and I needed to make sure I wasn't adding to the pressure. Yeah, there we go. Damien opened an eye to me, glazed over in tears, and smiled ever so slightly, knowing exactly what I was doing.
Thank you.
I let my emotions rumble in my chest, and as I nodded with a smile, I understood him perfectly. After all, I was going to be his wife. However, a full minute passed and nothing had changed. I began to instinctively worry, but I forced the feeling into my chest and continued to let my head remain empty of thought. Damien attempted to take deep breaths, trying to calm down further, but to no avail. I became even more worried than before. What was I supposed to do?
Liberamente tua.
The sound of Diana's voice echoed through the room, forcing me to turn around and look at her as she stood in the doorway. She stared hard at Damien, holding a hand out to him. Her fingers and palm began to glow a dark purple color, like a flame dancing over her skin. Damien slowly rolled onto his knees onto the bed, still gripping his head and growling to himself as Diana slowly approached him, holding her hand close to him, his forward-tilting head.
Liberamente tua.
The flames around Diana's hand sparked, intensifying its glow as Damien winced and hissed out from a sting of pain. I continued to remain still, not wanting to add to the pressure in Damien's head, but confused as to what Diana was doing. Very slowly, Damien's head began to glow the same purple color before a stream of purple energy began to trickle from him towards Diana's hand. As it connected, the energy around Damien's head began to fade at last, and Damien's tense form began to relax. Diana tensed her hands and caused the flame around her skin to warp around itself, forming an orb above her palm as she turned it towards her. As it settled into a physical purple ball, she grasped it and let it shatter in her hand. Glass and blood began to trickle from her close grip as Damien finally released a breath of air, slamming his hands down on the mattress beneath him and curling himself further over his knees. Damien? I instinctively reached over and placed his hand on his arm, feeling the cold sweat run down them from the struggle he was fighting against earlier. He was paler than before, but his face slowly melted to an expression of calm relief. I looked back at Damien, seeing her lift her hand to her mouth and lick over her new wounds. Blood trickled down her arm, but she managed to catch most of it with her tongue, unfazed by Damien's sudden relaxation or my stare. What did you do? Diana kept her focus on her arm and hand as she replied.
I did something that his brothers should have done a long time ago. Placed a barrier on his mind.
What? I furrowed my eyebrows in confusion, not understanding what she meant. As Diana finally looked back at me, she let out a sigh at my expression.
He can read minds, but he can't control it. However, imagine putting a bubble around his thoughts. He wouldn't be able to hear anything but his own. This is precisely what I have done.
Then what was that energy you pulled from him?
That was something that shouldn't have been there. It's nothing to be concerned about. Right, Damien?
Again, I became more confused. However, I looked up at Damien to see him looking up at Diana with almost a forced, thankful look. I could tell he was grateful for the assistance, but I could tell he was still angry with her.
However, that spell won't last forever. He'll need to maintain it using energy. But I'm sure you can provide that, correct?
I was lost, but I understood what she was saying, nodding in acknowledgement. I want to question it. What did you take from Damien? I wanted to know exactly what was going on. The confusion that was going throughout the day of Damien's well-being was too much to ignore, and I needed to sort it out. If not for him, then for my own sanity. Diana gave me a firm look, crossing her arms.
A little piece of the demon lord that has been haunting him. Happy?
What? Diana shook her head and let out a sigh.
He can explain if you're that curious.
Diana then turned on her heel and walked towards the door. Before she left, however, she turned back and looked to Damien.
Be careful how much you feed. You've been without energy for too long. You'll be craving soon.
With those haunting words, Diana finally left the room as Damien laid his head on mine. He let out a tired sigh as I looked at him, lost as ever. Just from his expression, I could tell that he was just beyond relief to be out of whatever torture the mind reading had forced upon him. It was something he never wanted, and yet he had to endure it for the day until Diana blocked his mind. Why didn't she do it before was beyond me, but at least he was okay now. The more I thought about it, the more a part of me began to question the situation. If Damien could block out his mind reading, then would it be possible for him to want to be a demon again? As a demon, he had many interesting abilities. Then again, it was his decision, and from what he had told me about his past, he didn't wish to relive any of it with the skin he was born in. I let the inner conflict wane as I cupped Damien's cheek, feeling him nuzzle into it. Right now, Damien needed some tender loving care, and I needed to provide it. Are you okay?
I am now.
I could hear the ease drip from his voice, making me smile. He was okay now. I slowly climbed into bed with him and wrapped my arms around his body, feeling him cuddle into my embrace and let out a hum of joy at the feeling. It was cute to see him like this, but then again, he was cute to begin with. Another reason why I loved him. I ran my hand slowly through his hair as I let him settle down from the ordeal he went through. I could tell he was exhausted, just like I was. However, he began to speak, making me awaken enough to pay attention to him.
I've been having nightmares, too.
No! Stop! No! Why would you have nightmares? That's sad. You have? I looked down at Damien as he nodded and looked up at me. The dark circles under his eyes were much more prominent the closer I was to him, making me frown a bit at the sight. Still, he continued.
Some sort of shadow kept visiting me and taunting me for my choices. It would change shape every time, and just now, it only helped in making my mind-reading abilities worse.
Damien. I gave Damien a small squeeze, making him lean up and kiss my cheek before nuzzling his head into my shoulder, continuing.
I didn't want to worry you with it because I thought it was a side effect to becoming human. But I guess it was right. I was always a demon.
No! I need to physically hug you right now. I need to physically hug you. Why can't I physically hug this precious being? I found even further and nuzzled his head gently. It's gone now, right? There's nothing you need to worry about anymore.
I know.
Damien and I held on to each other, both settled into the situation we were under. This was a large step for us, and we had to somehow deal with this, most likely after we returned to the demon world. Don't you mean the human world? Whatever. Would Damien get used to being a demon once again, or will he demand to try and become a human once more? I couldn't say for sure. The exhaustion that plagued us took over us at last, driving us to sleep within each other's arms. I half expected the night to be uneventful, but my thoughts began to plague me, trying to disassemble all of my discoveries and everything that happened to us in my subconscious. We were in the demon world, and Damien was back to being a demon, despite that fact that he never actually became human in the first place, even though Diana said that she had done it. The dizzying cycle of confusion waved around each thought, making them spin as I tried to organize and dissect them.
There's no use in trying, dear. You'll only become more confused in the end.
Now that definitely sounds like Diana, but Diana's voice rang out in the air. See? Causing me to look around in surprise at the dark. Diana?
Keep telling yourself that, dear. Whatever helps you sleep.
I spun around the space, trying to pin down where her voice was coming from, but saw nothing but the black color of my imageless dreams greet me as I did. Still, Diana's voice rang out to me, loud and clear, as if she were there watching and speaking to me somewhere nearby. Was this only meant to confuse me more? What do you want?
What do you think, dear? I'm here to haunt you and tell you how your life is a complete mess now that Damien is back to being a demon. Oh, wait. He was never human in the first place.
Oh my god, can you shut up? I sneered at the dark, unbelieving what I was hearing. He might as well have been. He didn't have magic or mind reading or anything, so he was close enough.
Something tells me that you're actually happy about the turn of events, no?
I don't know. I'm confused. What?
Think about it. Damien with his powers. He's not a boring human. He can enthrall you and use magic and protect you forever and ever without worrying about human trivialities.
I took a moment to myself, taking in what the voice proclaimed in Diana's voice. While it was true that Damien and I accepted his humanity, a part of me was rather excited to see him as a demon again. I mean, who wouldn't be? To be honest, I'd probably be the same. Maybe it was the nostalgia of meeting him as a demon, or maybe it was because it was a part of him I loved that made him happy. I couldn't tell. At my silence, the voice in the air chuckled deeply.
See? There's nothing wrong with a little demon power. What was Damien thinking?
At that moment, my mind began to cloud with agreement. What was Damien thinking? Why desire to be a human? Humans were weaker than demons, and he could do so many things now that he had a barrier around his mind reading. As much as I agree with not wanting to be human, I mean, it is still Damien's choice. He didn't have to give up his powers now, and everything would be completely okay. The voice disappeared, leaving the thought of Damien engraved in my dreams. He ran through my mind as the night passed to the morning the next day. Should I end it here? Yeah, I think I'm gonna end it here. Ooh, we just reached the hour mark. I might as well end it here after we just went through a whole day. Whew. Okay, so yeah, let's end this episode here. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more of my videos, then click subscribe. I'll probably do more tomorrow, hopefully. So with that being, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!